Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'd like to start off with put your phone down and pay attention to your kids. This is a reoccurring instance I see during my own work and in society. It's definitely an epidemic. So I think everyone can come to a common belief that there are patterns in human behavior. Patterns that include decision-making, facial expressions, presence, and conversation. I think those are all being blocked and intersected with technology, and the technology specifically that goes along with your parenting style. Now, I'm not here to tell you how to parent, but I like to give some words. So, parenting, I think nowadays has to adjust with this technology as a basis. People are giving quotas for screen time with their kids, and I think that's a really good start. But I think what we first have to do is analyze the whole idea of how that actually comes into a play with your kids and how they look at people, talk to people, keep conversations, and their attention span. Every human defines themselves through their own mentality, which they develop with respect to their habitats. That's a quote from Christina Reddy that I believe has a lot of relevance to this topic. So child development. As a parent, that's one of your most important roles, and that's your biggest concern. So eye contact, I believe, is the first conflict with technology. Eye contact is learned through eye contact, so the child needs to look at their parent. And if the parent is looking at their phone, it's really hard, and it challenges the child to overcome that and still need to learn eye contact through different avenues. Communication skills. Kids need to be talked to talk. That's a very blatant statement that I believe has a lot of reoccurrence in today's society. It's vital for a professional career, as we're told in our adolescence and going into high school and college. And I think that needs to be learned at home because it's very difficult to learn that when you're about 13. That's a quote from the Huffington Post. So attention span. Kids, it's not easy to teach you attention span. It's something that you need to be practiced with, and you need to have demonstrated to you. So if a parent, for instance, is in conversation and looking at their phone, that gives a signal to the child that that's okay, and that's not okay, and that's not what we would expect from adults. So here you can see the cycle of technology. I believe that this is a cycle that needs to be cut off at the very beginning. So technology can be defined as a frequent and obsessive addiction, and that's by the FCD prevention works. So it first starts when parents are on their phone at home. That goes with not looking at their kids, maybe using their phone in reference to when they're talking to their kids. And babies are kind of boring when they're young, and so having a phone to look at, it's easy, and no one thinks about it. So then that cycle goes into, it triggers the child to talk on their phone and look at them, and it's really hard for them to grasp the ideas of conversation and communication skills in their development. So a child then forms a technology dependence. This dependence is frowned upon in our society, but it actually begins with the people that we learn from. So this goes on to my second point about safety. I think parents' main objective is to focus on safety and have that at the forefront of their brains. So it's common knowledge that there's less of a chance for accidents when you're watching your child. They won't be running into traffic and drowning and having mechanical accidents with stuff that I don't even want to talk about because it's really devastating, and it devastates our community as a whole. This is very prevalent with young parents, especially, that I've noticed through my own work. As a nanny, I see a lot of different kinds of family orientations, and there's a lot of different ways of communicating with your child. So some behavior examples that are limited by the technology use of parents especially, is time management. If you're demonstrating to your child that a good use of time is going on your phone and spending hours and not paying attention and not devastating or not deviating work to work hard, and that's a really hard thing for a child to grasp, and I believe it definitely intersects with the development of children. Another thing that is now more prevalent is the social media self-fulfillment. It's common knowledge that likes and posts and all that kind of stuff is becoming more fulfilling and more of a person's morale, and they get self-fulfillment through those, and it's really easy for parents to demonstrate that to children and pass that along in a cycle. So then I want to circle back to the importance of interaction. Talk to your kids. It's not that hard. And I just think it's one of the main ideals that needs to be put a lot of thought on. Don't put your phone away. Don't look at it. You're with your kid. Focus on them and talk to them. That's how child development is specialized, and that's how you develop a strong bond with your kid. Your child isn't going to have a trust with you if you don't talk to them, have common practices, and make those memories. That's what makes child-parent bond so strong. So I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and I believe that there's a lot of really bad things that can happen when you intersect with your children and you put that source of technology as a disturbance and as a way to bring your attention to. And I think that I've shown that there's a prevalence to spending time with your kids. Thank you. Right, can you do? Oh, questions. Miss?
Do you think that this will not just be a parent-child issue, but also a problem between siblings, that they don't interact enough and create a bond because they're alone on their phone?
I agree exactly with what you said. I think that might be a really important thing to put their attention on, and not to only limit it during parent and child interaction, but also sibling interaction. I think that also would intersect with development, and especially development of trust. Yes?
And more specifically, how have you noticed this in your line of work?
So as a nanny, I see that even when I'm in the room or if I'm prevalent, that the kid still has a drawings to their screen or tablet. And I think that shows a lot of the addiction. And I think that's a really harsh word, but I think it's a word we need to start using. Yes?
How are we going to fix this problem?
Well, I think the first start is limiting parent screen time, because as a parent, you're a role model for your child, and so cutting down on your screen time first will eventually show in the child's behavior. Miss?
Do you think teenagers will naturally want to put their phone down sometime and just try to relate to reality more?
Yeah, I think in your teenage years you have a lot more knowledge and you're more aware of the addiction and how it relates with your social stigma of always being on your phone. So I think as a teenager you would be more concerned about putting your phone down.
How young does this addiction start? Have you seen it? I know myself, I've seen it in a child very young.
Yes.
But I just want to know, how young do you think it starts?
I think around like 6 months old you start realizing how to talk, and that whole development can sometimes be blocked by the use of technology, and especially if there's not actual words coming out of parents' voices. That also really blocks the development.
I have one other question. Do you think parents sometimes use the phone as a pacifier for a child?
I completely agree. I think
the place of a pacifier.
it really does, and that's just the worst way to do it, in my opinion. because I just see the relevance as when they grow older and they have that same pacifier that's not being taken away as if you were younger, and the pacifier gets thrown away, but that technology is going to be in their hand for the next 40, 60, even longer years, and so it's really hard to not have a lot of control on that pacifier for, Yes.
Where does the problem begin?
The problem begins with the parent, I believe. And then if it doesn't begin with the parent, it begins with some sort of role model in the child's life.
Do you think there's a safety issue when they're infants about dropping the phone, like in the crib, or, not paying close attention, like physically with a phone in one hand, not just when the baby's, away from you not paying attention, but when they're actually with you having a phone in one hand and your baby in the other?
I think we've all had that instance of having too many things in our hand and drop one thing. And that's a really sad reality when it comes to holding a child. So, further critique?
Okay. So now we will begin the audience critique session, and we'll start with the introduction. How do you guys think Jonna introduced the topic? Pretty
Very
good?
nice.
By show of hands? Yeah, pretty good? Okay, cool. So, also, how would you say her organization was, like, and how easy it was to follow? Like, show of hands, pretty good? Yeah. Also, do we have any tips or things that we noticed to let Jonna know? Like any constructive criticism or things we think she did especially well on?
Maybe she couldn't turn her head, so when she should have finished her sentences before going back to the computer and then looking at the computer and coming back to us.
Okay.
But it wasn't that distracting, but it was.
I think she did a good job of speaking up and moving around too. What?
I thought she did an excellent job and conveyed the information very well.
And you appeared very confident. You had a good delivery style, and you moved. That's good. You didn't stay in one place the whole time, and you were prepared. And does anyone have anything else they'd like to add for Jonna? Either constructive criticism or things she did
She
especially
gave me
well?
things to think about as a parent.
Okay.
Count the people that are here
Oh,
for it.
okay, yeah.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 11, 12, 12 and a half.
One on Skype.
And one on Skype. So I'd like to thank you guys all for being here today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.